her to leading manager. That is, heading a group of employees. You see, my company was doing rather well, and I was in a rather good mood.
Mr. Burling.
Yes, anyways, upon their return from their holidays, they were asking their rates raised from £200, which was averaging a preposterous total.
Which was?
210.
Ah.
Naturally, I refused.
Why?
Well, I don't see how it's any concern of yours, Inspector, how I choose to run my business.
You never know. It might be.
Well, if you must know, it is my duty to keep labour costs down, and raising their rates would have meant adding a significant amount to our labour costs. I am first and foremost a businessman. Does that answer satisfy you? No? Well, I told them that if they weren't satisfied with their rates, they could go and find work elsewhere, and off they went. They went on strike. That didn't last long. Eventually, they came back to their old rates and not a peep out of them again.
All of them?
No. Except for the 4 or 5 ringleaders who started the whole mess. I had to go down there and tell them to get lost myself. And this girl, Eva Smith, who'd had a lot to say, far too much if you ask me, had to go.
Could have kept her on instead. I call it unfair.
Rubbish! You have to come down hard on these people or they'll never learn. They'd have been asking me for the earth next.
Better to ask for the earth, Mr. Burling, than take it.
What did you say your name was, Inspector?
Goole. Goole.
And how do you get on with the Chief Constable, Colonel George Ryan?
I don't see very much of him.
Well, perhaps I ought to mention that he and I are good friends and we play golf together quite regularly.
I don't play golf.
Well, I think it's a damn shame.
I don't. I never much wanted to play.
No, about the girl, Eva Smith. Why shouldn't she try for higher wages? We try for the highest possible prices, and I don't see why you sacked her just because she had a bit more
Oh,
spirit.
quiet, you bloody fool. It's about time you learned something about responsibility. It's something this public school lifestyle hasn't taught you.
Well, we don't need to tell the inspector all
I
about
don't think
that.
we need to tell the inspector anything more. I've said all that I can. I told her to get lost and off she went. Any idea what happened to her next? Got into trouble, ended up on the streets?
No, not exactly.
What's all this about the streets? Oh, I'm sorry. Mother sent me down, Father. She asks why you never came to the drawing room.
We'll be long in a minute, Sheila. We're just finishing.
No, we are not.
There's nothing else! I've told you that. Edna?
Yes,
Pour
sir.
Mrs. Burley and Sheila some tea. I'd quite like the whole family in bed soon.
Yes, sir. Anything for you, Mom?
No, nothing for me.
Yes, now run along, Edna, and make sure Miss Burley gets to bed.
One moment, Miss Burling.
Now look here, Inspector, I consider this uncalled for and officious. I have half a mind to report you, and I don't see why there's any reason that my daughter should be dragged into this mess.
I am a police inspector, Miss Burling. This afternoon, a young woman drank a lot of very powerful disinfectant and died after several hours of unimaginable agony.
Oh, horrible. Was it an accident?
No, she wanted to end her life. She felt she couldn't go on any longer.
Well, now don't tell me this is because I fired her nearly 2 years ago, Inspector.
That appears to be the start.
Father?
She was causing troubles in the works. I was quite justified.
Yes, you were, Mr. Burley. Sheila, please don't look like that.
Sorry, just thinking about this poor girl destroying herself so horribly. And I was so happy. I wish you hadn't told me. Well, what was she like? Was she young?
24.
And was she pretty?
Very. You wouldn't know it from her remains.
That's
mind.
enough! I don't see how this line of inquiry gets you anywhere, Inspector. It's what happened to the girl after she left the works that's important. And we cannot help you there because we do not know what happened to her since.
Are you sure?
You're not suggesting that anyone else had anything to do with this girl?
Yes, I am.
So, where are you now, Inspector?
Where I was before, Mr. Croft. Like I said, like many young women, she'd used more than one name. She was still Eva Smith when Mr. Burling turned her out for wanting £10 more a week. But after that, she stopped being Eva Smith. Perhaps she'd gotten tired of it.
Can't say I blame her. You treated her wrongly, Father.
It was a mean thing.
Oh, enough! I will not be spoken to in this manner.
Anyway, the girl is out of work for the next 2 months. Orphaned and homeless, and thanks to your wages, sir, she had no savings to fall back upon. So, after 2 months, counting pennies and scraps in her little back bedroom, she had a remarkable stroke of luck. She was taken on to work in a shop. A rather good shop at that. Percival Rymark's.
Rymark's? Why, we shop there. Father says it's the best place for clothes. Well, what happened next, Inspector?
Well, you can imagine how she must have felt, liked being among the pretty clothes, undoubtedly. And of course, after a couple of months, just as she was starting to settle in, she was fired.
But why?
Well, they couldn't fault her work, they admitted that. All she knew was that a customer had made a complaint about her, and she had to go.
Oh, and, when was this?
A year ago.
Ah, I see. And, any idea what she looked like?
Come and see.
What, did you want to go upsetting the child like that for?
I didn't upset her. She upset herself.
Well, why?
I've yet to find out.
Well, if you don't mind, Inspector, I think I'm going to go and find out first. And I'd like to have a word with my wife as well. We were having a nice little family celebration here, and look what a mess you've made of it.
Funny. I said that to myself tonight, Mr. Burley, looking at Eva's body. What a fine mess of a life someone has made.
Oh, now look here. Well, I'd like some tea. And some cookies. Perhaps some Millie cookies. Where's that? No, what? No.
You didn't offer me a cup. What poor service. Anyway, Inspector, listen. My father was right. We've been celebrating, and I have a raging headache. Perhaps it's best if I turn in.
And I'd rather you stay, Master Burley. If you turn in, it's going to be awfully inconvenient for you when you have to turn out again.
Getting a bit heavy-handed, aren't we, Inspector?
You knew it was me the entire time, didn't you?
I had an inkling from something the girl herself wrote.
Well, it was just I told Father, and he didn't think it amounted to much. Did it matter much to her?
Yes. It was the last real steady job she had. And when she lost it, for no good reason, I might add, she thought she ought to try a different kind of life.
But what did Sheila do?
I'd gone to try a dress on. It was an idea of my own, and neither Mother nor the assistant had agreed. And as soon as I tried it on, I knew it was a mistake, although I told myself otherwise at first. And, well, I saw Mother speaking with the assistant. She was a pretty girl. Long blonde hair, big blue eyes, rosy cheeks. And, well, I caught sight of her looking at me in the mirror as if to say, well, doesn't she look ridiculous? And I was furious. I was very rude to her, called her all sorts of names, and I went to the manager and I demanded that she be fired for impertinence. But if she had been some plain, miserable little creature, I wouldn't have cared. But she was pretty. So pretty, in fact, that I knew she could take care of herself. And I couldn't feel sorry for her.
You were jealous.
Yes, I suppose yes.
And you used your influence as the daughter of a well-respected man to have her fired because you envied her looks.
But don't you see, I didn't know it'd be something terrible at the time. And if I could help her now...
Well, you can't. She's dead.
You're a bit silly when you think about it. And your source of quality clothing is forever gone.
Oh, shut up, Eric. I behaved badly, I know I did, and I'd never do it again. I've seen them giving me a look down at Rymark's as if they know. I suppose they all remember. I can never go there again. Why did this have to happen?
Funny. I asked myself that tonight, looking at Eva Smith's cold, lifeless body, and I said to myself, well, we'll have to try and find out why this had to happen. And that's why I'm here. And I'm not leaving until I know everything. This girl, Eva Smith, lost her job with your father when her strike failed. And when, at last, she finally found another job and could stop living off scraps, she was fired. Because you were annoyed with yourself and passed that annoyance on to her. So, she decided she ought to try something different. And she changed her name to Daisy Renton.
What? What did you say?
I said she changed her name to Daisy Renton.